Hello there and welcome back to the Net Report. Chris here, and today I'm going to be going over the most shocking picks in the 2026 NFL Draft and give my thoughts on them. For this list, I'll be looking at picks that genuinely surprised me and left me stunned, both good and bad. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Starting off, one of the more shocking picks we saw throughout the draft were the Arizona Cardinals drafting Jeremiyah Love 3rd overall. And this was one of the more shocking picks because we don't typically see running backs get drafted this high, especially at the 3rd overall pick of the draft. He, of course, is one of the best, if not the best talents in the draft. He was an absolute unit for Notre Dame, putting up over 1,300 yards and 6.9 yards per carry. And he has everything you want in a running back. He has the speed, the athleticism, the elusiveness, the pass catching. He is everything you want in a modern 3-down back. So the Arizona Cardinals are getting an incredible player and probably one of the best in the draft. However, this is the Arizona Cardinals we're talking about, who have a ton of holes on their roster. So I'm not really sure drafting a running back in Jeremiyah Love this high was the correct option or just the best decision overall. It's really puzzling because they could have gone BPA at edge. Arvell Reese was right there. You could have gone tackle and continue building up that line, especially if you're going to draft a QB next year, because they still don't have a QB on this roster, which is going to be pretty interesting to see how they build the offense, especially around Jeremiyah Love, because there's not really a great O-line. You don't have a QB. He's not necessarily being put in the best place to succeed right off the bat. On top of that, you also had a pretty decent running back room already. You had just brought in Tyler Algier, who was always pretty solid, one of the best backup running backs in Atlanta behind Bijan Robinson. He had a year where he had 1,000 yards. You kind of thought this was going to be his chance to be the feature back. That's definitely not the case anymore. You still had James Conner coming back from injury, and even though he's been injury prone, I think he's 30 years old now, you thought there's a chance he could come back and still be pretty productive. He's never been, this elite back, but he's still always been solid, and if he can come back from injury, he can still contribute. You also had Trey Benson, who also has been injured quite a bit, but he's shown flashes, so that's 3 pretty solid guys. And you bring in Jeremiyah Love, who of course outskills all of them right off the bat, but it kind of brings into question, was this a big need, especially over, like I mentioned earlier, edge or tackle? So I really think the Cardinals, they could have shored up bigger holes. They could have used this pick kind of elsewhere. So picking Jeremiyah Love is just a little shocking and puzzling here, but time will tell. I'm definitely not betting against Jeremiyah Love, the player, but I just have questions about the Cardinals drafting him here specifically. Moving on to the next shocking pick, I have the Rams selecting Ty Simpson 13th overall out of Alabama, and this was by far the most shocking pick of the night if you ask anyone. This reminded me a lot of the Packers picking Jordan Love a few years back, going the QB successor route despite still being a contender. And while it worked in the long term for the Packers, I'm not so sure this is going to work out for the Rams like it did for the Packers. And don't get me wrong, I get this pick in a vacuum. Having a successor for Matthew Stafford when he's probably going to retire in the next 1 to 2 years makes perfect sense. However, Ty Simpson comes out of Alabama only starting for 1 year. He was a projected 2nd or 3rd round pick. He wasn't very high on a lot of people's draft boards, so picking him 13th overall when a team like the Rams were very much in contention last year. They could have added a huge piece to really help this, especially the defense, to help bring this team up towards Super Bowl contention, and that's just not what happened, unfortunately. Overall, the 13th pick just seems too high for Ty Simpson. I would understand if maybe Sean McVay handpicked this guy and was like, hey, Ty Simpson, that's going to be our future quarterback after Matthew Stafford retires. Let's have him redshirt and learn from Stafford. However, reports and interviews have come out, and it doesn't seem like Sean McVay had any input on this pick, and he did not seem very happy during the draft, during any of these interviews. So it's kind of puzzling that they went Ty Simpson, especially when they're like in win now mode, but time will tell if this is the correct pick. The next shocking pick I wanted to discuss is my Philadelphia Eagles trading up to draft Makai Lemon at number 20. And if anyone had any questions or doubts, I think we can all agree this definitely means AJ Brown is gone. Some fans like myself were clinging on to the hopium that maybe he would be around next season, but this draft pick basically ensures AJ will be traded. And with that being the case, drafting Makai Lemon to pair alongside Devontae Smith and be a weapon for Jalen Hurts is just awesome. This genuinely shocked me and was not something I was expecting. Makai Lemon is of course going to pair very nicely with Devontae Smith. He will probably be used a lot in the slot. That'll allow Devontae to kind of move more outside. And honestly, I just really like this pairing together, especially assuming AJ Brown is gone. He should be able to jump into that wide receiver 2 role. He was arguably the best receiver in the draft class. I know it's kind of been Tate, Lemon, and Tyson. Kind of pick whoever you like the most. But I think the biggest shocker in all this is that the Cowboys helped facilitate this trade. They traded their number 20th pick, traded back 3 spots, got a couple picks from the Eagles, and on top of that, Philly basically stole Makai Lemon from the Steelers. He was already on the phone with the Steelers at pick 21. I don't think they expected the Eagles jumping up, of course, and they picked Makai Lemon, and this overall is just a huge help, especially at the wide receiver 2 role, assuming, of course, the Eagles are trading AJ Brown. It keeps great wide receiver talent around Jalen Hurts, who he has his flaws, but you know, when he's typically surrounded behind great talent, he produces. So I really love this pick from the Eagles, and it's just a shocker because I did not expect them to trade up or even draft a receiver. Howie Roseman and the Eagles just continue to get away with this. The next most shocking pick I wanted to highlight was the fall of Arvell Reese to pick 5, eventually selected by the New York Giants. And this is a total BPA pick. Pick the best player on the board. Many thought they would focus on their secondary and maybe target someone like a Caleb Downs, but they elected to go BPA with Arvell Reese. And this is very interesting when you look at their roster construct because they have 4 edge rushers now in Arvell Reese, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. It is almost certain one of these guys will be traded, as there of course is not enough room to play all these guys at edge, and it will probably likely be Kayvon Thibodeau, let's be honest. Many had Reese ranked 1 or 2 on their big boards, especially at edge, next to David Bailey. He is just very explosive off the line. He can get to the quarterback, he can play off ball, and is just an extremely versatile defender. It would not surprise me if they use him in different packages alongside Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, which could be very interesting. I am genuinely surprised though the Cardinals and Jets did not pick him. He was the best player available probably during those picks. Depends who you like better between David Bailey and Reese, but they both needed edges. They passed on him, and he kind of fell into the Giants' lap despite them not really needing him as much as the other teams might have. Value and pick-wise, this move makes sense, but I do wonder how they will juggle him alongside their other pass rushers, or if they try to play him off ball or use him in different packages. That will probably be the most interesting part of this pick, but it was pretty shocking to see him fall, especially to a team like the Giants, considering they have so many edge rushers already. Finally, the last shocking pick I have on this list is Jadarian Price being drafted 32nd overall by the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm honestly just surprised they invested that much draft capital into a running back after not wanting to invest cap and resources into Kenneth Walker. Jadarian Price was of course the backup to Jeremiyah Love at Notre Dame, and he had a solid stint over there. However, this just feels like a little bit of a reach based on his talent. He was a projected 2nd or 3rd rounder, and he's fine as a 1 or 2 down back, but he's not really much of a receiving threat, so you're not getting really 3 down ability. He had less than 200 yards in his entire college career receiving wise, and really you're just getting a solid runner who maybe they'll have in a kind of system with Charbonnet, but I don't see him really taking over this backfield like right off the bat day 1 like you would hope a round 1 pick to be. If I was Seattle, I honestly would have kept Kenneth Walker. He was your Super Bowl MVP. That would have kind of helped build the culture around Seattle, having that guy for another 5 years, let him become a franchise legend. He worked great in a split system with Charbonnet, but instead they used this 1st round pick on Jadarian Price. We'll see if it works out, but I think there's probably other avenues they could have gone. There were reports that there were other guys that we're looking at, but they got picked right beforehand, so Jadarian Price is kind of what they settled on. But once again, I don't love spending a 1st round pick on a guy who's not going to be a 3 down back, and if you're spending a pick this high, that's kind of what you're hoping you get. So time will tell if this pick works out, but overall, not my favorite pick. A little shocking to see them reach, especially after kind of saying, hey, we don't want to invest a lot of resources in a running back, and then they turn around and do that in the draft, unless I guess they're just thinking cap-wise, but who knows, time will tell. But that concludes my list for the most shocking 2026 NFL draft picks. Please let me know what you think were the most shocking picks in the comments below. I know I haven't been posting a lot, but I do plan on posting much more content frequently with my college graduation around the corner. So if you want to see more content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel out a ton. Once again, thank you for tuning in and have a great one.